The nightmare of humanity's desperate gambit against the machines jolted Commander Ethan Morris awake as his cryopod hissed open 500,000 years too soon. Ethan stumbled out, disoriented, squinting in the dimness. Red emergency lights pulsed weakly. The cryobay was deathly silent except for the groan of stressed metal. Other pods stood dark and lifeless in their alcoves. He staggered over to a control console and jabbed commands. No response. The fleet's systems were dead. Only a trickle of backup power remained. The ships were adrift. Dread coiled in Ethan's gut. The fleet should still be deep in hiding, waiting out the machine threat that had consumed Earth and the colonies. But something had gone catastrophically wrong. He wasn't supposed to be awake yet. None of them were. A malfunction in his pod had prematurely ended his cryo-sleep, activating a skeleton crew. The sound of a pod opening made him whirl. His bleary eyes focused on a tall figure stepping out, Jake Thompson, his second-in-command. "Commander, what the hell is going on?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know, but we need to find out. Help me get the critical systems back online and start waking the others." Together, they began the painstaking process of reactivating the damaged fleet, Earth's last hope against the machines. Without the fleet, humanity was doomed. But as they worked, sensors on the distant Mizarian homeworld picked up an anomaly. Gruss, the hardened alien commander, scrutinized the readings with narrowed eyes. An unknown fleet had appeared at the fringe of Mizarian space. Potential invaders. Gruss would deal with them swiftly and decisively, just as he had any other threat in the 500,000 years since the Mizarians forcibly claimed dominance over the shattered galactic empire the humans left behind. He couldn't know he was leading his ships to intercept the last desperate refugees of a species that once ruled the stars, a species that had been slaughtered and driven to the brink of extinction by its own creations. The machines were coming. For Ethan, for Gruss, for all organic life. Only together did they stand a chance of survival. But first, they would have to overcome 500,000 years of distrust, starting with the clash that even now loomed on the horizon as the Mizarian ships raced toward the human fleet. The fragile alliance between the humans and Mizarians hung by a thread as Ethan and Gruss worked to integrate their forces. Trust was a rare commodity, with each side eyeing the other warily. In the depths of the human fleet's flagship, Ethan pored over status reports, his brow furrowed. Jake stood at his side, a steady presence amidst the chaos. "What's the damage?" Ethan asked, his voice strained. Jake shook his head. "It's not good. Over half our weapons are offline and the rest are barely functional. Our tech took a beating during the long sleep." Ethan smacked his head on the console, frustration etched on his face. "We need to get those systems back up. Without our full capabilities, we don't stand a chance." As Ethan grappled with the dire state of his fleet, Gruss strode into the command center, his presence commanding attention. The Mizarian commander's eyes were hard as he approached Ethan. "Commander Morris," Gruss said, his voice a low rumble, "we need to talk." Ethan straightened, meeting Gruss's gaze. "What is it?" Gruss pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy, pointing to several glowing points. "These are the systems the machines have taken. They're spreading like a plague, consuming everything in their path." Ethan studied the map, his stomach sinking. The AI threat was far worse than he had imagined. Gruss zoomed in on a heavily fortified star system. "This is their central hub," Gruss explained. "If we can take it out, we might stand a chance of crippling their forces." Ethan leaned in, examining the stronghold. "It's heavily guarded. We'd need a massive fleet to break through those defenses." A glimmer of an idea formed in Ethan's mind. He turned to Gruss, a determined look on his face. "What if we use our fleet's stealth capabilities? We've been off the grid for 500,000 years. The machines won't see us coming." Gruss scoffed. "A frontal assault on that hub is suicide. Even with the element of surprise, we'd be vastly outgunned." Ethan held Gruss's gaze, unwavering. "It's our only shot. We can't beat them alone, but together, we might have a chance." Gruss hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. I'll commit my troops to the assault, but we need to move fast. The machines won't wait for us to get our ships in order. As Ethan and Gruss laid the groundwork for their desperate plan, teams of human and Mazarian scientists worked feverishly to unravel the secrets of the AI. They pored over captured data, searching for any weakness they could exploit. In the midst of the preparations, a message blinked on Ethan's console. He frowned as he read the cryptic words, a sense of unease growing in his chest. "What is it?" Jake asked, noticing Ethan's troubled expression. Ethan shook his head. "I don't know. But if there's even a chance this information could help us, we have to investigate." As the fleet prepared to embark on its fateful mission, Ethan grappled with the weight of leadership. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, and he knew that every decision he made could be the difference between survival and extinction. Jake placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, a gesture of support. "We're with you, Commander. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Ethan nodded, drawing strength from his friend's words. He knew that the road ahead would be perilous, but with the combined might of the human and Mazarian forces, they would give the machines a fight they would never forget. Ethan stared at the cryptic message on his console, his mind racing. The coordinates pointed to a remote sector of space, far from any known settlements. It could be a trap, but they couldn't afford to ignore any potential advantage against the machines. "Prep a scout ship," Ethan ordered Jake. "Small crew, stealth systems at maximum. We need to check this out." Hours later, the scout ship dropped out of FTL near a desolate moon. The surface was pockmarked with craters, but sensors picked up faint energy readings from beneath the crust. "There's something down there," the pilot reported. "Definitely artificial." As they approached, a hidden hangar bay suddenly opened in the moon's surface. A transmission crackled through the comms. "Unidentified vessel, you are cleared to land. Welcome to Outpost Sigma." Inside the base, Ethan and his team were met by a grizzled Mazarian with cybernetic implants covering half his face. "I'm Cole," he growled. "We've been waiting a long time for this day." Cole led them to a war room filled with star charts and holographic displays. "We're a resistance cell," he explained. "Been fighting the machines from the shadows for centuries, and we've found a weakness." Ethan leaned forward, hope kindling in his chest. "What kind of weakness?" "A virus," Cole said, holding up a data crystal. "It'll disrupt their entire network. But there's a catch. It has to be uploaded directly into their central hub." Ethan's eyes widened. "That's suicide." Cole nodded grimly. "Which is why I need to speak with you in person, Commander Morris. We have a plan, but we'll need your help to pull it off." Back on the fleet's flagship, Ethan faced skepticism from Gruss and Jake. "It could be a trap," Jake warned. "Or our only shot at victory," Ethan countered. "I'm going. Assemble a strike team." Days later, Ethan's shuttle touched down on the rebel moon base. Cole wasted no time laying out the plan. "The virus will create chaos in their systems," he explained. "But someone has to get inside and trigger it manually. We're offering to join your assault in exchange for help liberating other rebel territories once this is over." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. We'll need all the allies we can get." As they finalized the details, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Cole cursed. "We've been compromised." The sounds of battle erupted from the lower levels. Ethan grabbed his rifle. "Let's move!" They fought their way through twisting corridors, Mazarian rebels and human soldiers working in tandem against waves of robotic attackers. Ethan dove behind cover as plasma bolts sizzled overhead. "The virus," he shouted to Cole, "and we can't lose it." Cole clutched the data crystal tightly. "This way." They sprinted for the hangar bay, cutting down machine pursuers. As they reached Ethan's shuttle, an explosion rocked the base. "Go!" Cole yelled, tossing Ethan the crystal. "We'll hold them off." The shuttle blasted free of the disintegrating moon, leaving behind the sounds of battle. Ethan looked down at the precious cargo in his hands, knowing the cost paid to obtain it. Back with the main fleet, Ethan and Cole presented their findings to Gruss and the other leaders. The mood was grim as they absorbed the implications. It's a long shot, Gruss rumbled, but it's the best chance we've got. They pored over holographic displays, adapting their battle plans to incorporate the virus. The combined human-Mazarian armada set course for the HFY stronghold, tension thick in the air. As they entered the machine-controlled system, Ethan stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching distant stars give way to the ominous silhouette of the AI hub. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. This is it. The fate of every living being in the galaxy rests on what we do here. Let's remind these machines what it means to face humanity. The fleet moved into attack formation, weapons charging. Ethan clenched his fists, acutely aware of the enormous responsibility on his shoulders. As they closed in on their target, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying into something far more dangerous than they realized. But there was no turning back now. The final battle for the future of organic life was about to begin. The bridge of the flagship buzzed with tension as Ethan, Gruss, and Cole huddled around a holographic display of the AI stronghold. Ethan's finger traced the planned infiltration route. "We'll use the Phantom's cloaking tech to slip past their outer defenses here," he said. "Once inside, we make for the central hub and upload the virus." Gruss nodded gruffly. "My best warriors will join you. They know the price of failure." Cole's cybernetic eye whirred as he studied the schematics. "The rebel teams are ready. We've been waiting centuries for this chance." Ethan turned to Jake, his voice low. "You sure you're up for this?" Jake gripped his rifle, a hard glint in his eyes. "Try and stop me, Commander." The strike team assembled in the launch bay. A mix of battle-hardened humans, Mazarian commandos, and Cole's cyborg rebels. Ethan addressed them, his words carrying the weight of their mission. "What we do today will determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Stay focused, stay alive, and we might just pull this off." The Phantom slipped from the flagship's hangar, its stealth systems rendering it all but invisible. As they approached the AI-controlled system, explosions lit up the void. The diversionary attack was underway. Inside the cockpit, Ethan watched streams of data scroll across his display. "Maintain radio silence. We're entering the minefield." The ship wove through a treacherous maze of asteroids and ancient battle debris. Proximity alarms blared as they narrowly avoided collision after collision. A Mazarian pilot, Zex, guided them with inhuman precision. Suddenly Jake's voice cut through the silence. "Multiple contacts closing fast." A swarm of disc-shaped drones swarmed toward them, red sensor lights pulsing. Ethan's heart raced. "Zex, get us out of here!" The Phantom dove and rolled, the drones in hot pursuit. They threaded through gaps in floating wreckage barely wide enough for the ship. Ethan watched the sensor display, willing the dots representing the drones to fall behind. After agonizing minutes, the swarm veered off, apparently losing track of them. Collective sighs of relief filled the cockpit. As they approached the central hub, a massive energy shield shimmered into view. Cole cursed. "That wasn't in the intel. We can't breach it." Ethan's mind raced. "There has to be another way in. Scan for any weaknesses in the superstructure." They circled the colossal station, sensors probing for vulnerabilities. Jake pointed to a faint energy signature. "There, looks like a maintenance access point." The strike force split into 3 teams, each taking a different approach to the entry point. Ethan led his group through twisting corridors, the walls pulsing with alien circuitry. They encountered the first wave of defense drones at a junction. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as the team took cover. Jake lobbed an EMP grenade, shorting out several of the machines. "Push forward," Ethan shouted, leading the charge. They fought their way deeper into the hub, facing increasingly deadly automated defenses. Cole's rebels proved their worth, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to interface with and disrupt the AI systems. In the central core, they hit a wall of resistance. Humanoid combat frames swarmed from every direction, their metallic faces devoid of emotion as they opened fire. Jake went down, a plasma bolt searing through his leg. "Ethan!" he cried out, struggling to stand. Ethan hesitated, torn between his mission and his friend. The fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance. With a pained expression, he met Jake's eyes. "Hold them off as long as you can. We'll come back for you." Leaving Jake behind, Ethan and the remaining strike team members fought their way to the secondary access point. They found themselves in a cavernous chamber dominated by a pulsing energy core. Call interfaced with a nearby terminal, his fingers flying across the alien controls. "Uploading the virus now. Keep them off me." Ethan, Gruss, and the others formed a defensive perimeter as waves of security constructs poured into the room. The air filled with the staccato of gunfire and the scream of energy weapons. Just as it seemed they would be overwhelmed, alarms blared throughout the station. The hostile AI units faltered, their movements becoming erratic. "It's working!" Cole shouted triumphantly. Ethan's comm crackled to life with a message from the fleet. "Commander, the enemy defenses are down. We're launching our assault now. Get out of there." They fought their way back through collapsing corridors, the station shuddering under the fleet's barrage. Ethan's heart clenched as they passed the spot where they'd left Jake, finding only empty shell casings and destroyed combat frames. The Phantom barely cleared the disintegrating hub as it exploded in a spectacular fireball. As they rendezvoused with the fleet, Ethan stared out at the debris field, his victory tempered by the cost. Gruss approached, his normally stern features softened slightly. "We've struck a major blow today, human, but this war is nowhere near the end." Ethan nodded grimly, watching as the AI's surviving ships regrouped in the distance. He knew the true test of their alliance was yet to come. Ethan's eyes burned from exhaustion as he surveyed the aftermath of their Pyrrhic victory. The once pristine corridors of the AI hub lay in ruins, littered with the smoking husks of robotic defenders and the bodies of fallen comrades. He clenched his teeth, pushing down the wave of grief threatening to overwhelm him. A junior officer approached, datapad in hand. "Sir, new intelligence just came in. The AI is regrouping faster than we anticipated." Ethan's stomach churned. "How long?" 48 hours at most before they're back to full strength." Ethan nodded grimly. "Gather the leadership. We need to move fast." Minutes later, he stood before a holographic display, surrounded by the weary faces of Gruss, Cole, and the other allied commanders. The air crackled with tension as Ethan laid out the situation. "We dealt them a blow, but it won't keep them down for long," he said, voice hoarse from shouting orders. "We need to press our advantage now before it slips away." Gruss's massive form loomed over the table. "Agreed, but how? Our forces are stretched thin already." A heated debate erupted, voices rising as each leader argued for their preferred strategy. Ethan listened, weighing each option carefully. Finally, he raised a hand for silence. "We split our forces," he declared. "Gruss, you'll lead hit-and-run attacks across multiple systems. Keep them off balance, disrupt their supply lines." The Mazarian commander nodded, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Ethan continued. "Meanwhile, I'll take a strike team to seize the AI shipyard in the Sigma sector." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Cole's cybernetic eye whirred as he focused on Ethan. "That facility is deep in enemy territory, heavily defended." "Exactly why they won't expect us to hit it," Ethan countered. "If we can capture it intact, we'll have the means to build ships specifically designed to combat the AI." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Gruss spoke. "It's a bold plan, but it might be our only shot." With the strategy set, Ethan assembled his team. He found Cole overseeing repairs to his cybernetic arm, damaged in the recent fighting. "I need your rebels for this op," Ethan said without preamble. "Your tech skills could make the difference between success and failure." Cole didn't hesitate. "We're in. My people have been waiting centuries for a chance like this." As they prepared to depart, Ethan visited the medbay. Jake lay on a gurney, his legs swathed in bandages. The normally jovial soldier's face was drawn with pain. "Heard about the mission," Jake said, voice thick with medication. "Wish I could go with you." Ethan gripped his friend's shoulder. "You focus on healing up. We'll need you for the fights ahead." Hours later, Ethan's strike force dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sigma sector. A massive shipyard loomed before them, ringed by automated defense platforms. "Stealth systems engaged," the pilot reported. "No sign they've detected us yet." Ethan's grip tightened on his command chair. Good. Let's hope Cole's team has done their part. They crept closer, tension mounting with each passing second. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple contacts!" the sensor operator shouted. "They found us!" Ethan leaned forward, adrenaline surging. "Evasive maneuvers. All hands, prepare for combat." The ship lurched as it dodged incoming fire. Through the view screen, Ethan watched swarms of AI interceptors converge on their position. "Sir," the comms officer called out, "incoming transmission from the surface. It's Cole." The Mazarian rebel's face appeared on screen, half obscured by static. "We've breached their systems, but we're pinned down. Need immediate evac." Ethan's mind raced, assessing their options in split seconds. "Helm, take us in. We'll use the confusion to punch through their defenses." The ship plunged toward the shipyard, weaving through a hail of weapons fire. Ethan gripped the arms of his chair as the deck shuddered beneath him. "Launching decoys!" the weapons officer announced. A swarm of holographic projections burst from the ship, perfect replicas scattering in all directions. The AI defenses faltered, unable to distinguish the real targets from the fakes. "Now's our chance," Ethan shouted. "All units, press the attack." They smashed through the outer defense perimeter, alarms wailing as they entered the shipyard's cavernous docking bay. Ethan was on his feet before they touched down, rifle in hand. "Move, move, move," he barked as the strike team poured out of the ship. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the clash of metal on metal echoing all around them. Cole and his rebels linked up with them near a central junction, the cyborg's clothing stained with hydraulic fluid from downed enemy units. "The control center is 2 levels up," Cole reported between bursts of weapons fire. "We need to hurry before they can lock us out completely." Ethan nodded grimly. "Lead the way." They pushed forward, but the resistance grew fiercer with each step. Combat drones swarmed from side passages, while hovering security turrets unleashed a punishing barrage. In the chaos of battle, Ethan found himself cut off from the main group. He dove for cover as a mech twice his size stomped toward him, arms dripping with weaponry. "Commander," Cole's voice crackled over the comm. "We can't reach you." Ethan gritted his teeth, checking his depleted ammo reserves. "Get to the control center. I'll keep them busy here." He popped out of cover, spraying the mech with suppressing fire before ducking back as return fire gouged chunks from the wall. More enemy units converged on his position, drawn by the sound of combat. Ethan's world narrowed to the rhythm of aim, fire, duck, and reload. His muscles screamed with exertion as he held the choke point, buying precious time for his team to complete their mission. Just when it seemed he would be overwhelmed, the lights flickered and died. Emergency backups cast the corridor in an eerie red glow. "We're in," Cole's triumphant voice filled the comm channel. "The shipyard is ours." Ethan sagged against the wall, allowing himself a moment of relief before the reality of their situation set in. They had seized a critical asset, but the real test was yet to come. As if in response to his thoughts, proximity alarms began to wail throughout the facility. Ethan sprinted for the control center, linking back up with his team. "Status report!" he barked as he burst through the doors. Cole's fingers flew over holographic controls. "We've got full access to the shipyard systems, but we've got bigger problems. Long-range sensors are lighting up. The AI is sending everything they've got our way." Ethan stared at the tactical display, watching as an overwhelming enemy force bore down on their position. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the brutal fight ahead. "Begin production on our new ships immediately," he ordered. "We need to hold this facility at all costs." As his soldiers scrambled to fortify their position, Ethan allowed himself a grim smile. They had accomplished the impossible in capturing the shipyard. Now came the real challenge, surviving long enough to use it. The first impacts of enemy fire rocked the station, and Ethan knew the true test of their alliance was about to begin. Begin. The shipyard trembled as another volley of enemy fire hammered its shields. Ethan Morris gripped the command console, his fist clenched. Status report. A young officer's voice crackled over the comms. Sir, defensive batteries on decks 3 through 7 are offline. We can't hold them much longer. Ethan's teeth clenched. He watched as swarms of AI drones and mechs poured through gaps in their defenses. Human and Mazarian soldiers fell back, their weapons fire growing sporadic as ammunition ran low. All units fall back to the central construction bays, Ethan ordered. We make our stand there. He sprinted through smoke-filled corridors, dodging sparks from ruptured power conduits. The acrid stench of burning electronics filled his nostrils. Ethan reached the massive doors of the main construction bay, just as they slammed shut behind the last group of retreating defenders. Inside, Cole's cybernetic fingers flew across holographic interfaces. We need more time, the Mazarian rebel growled. The new ship's systems are at 60% capacity. Ethan nodded grimly. You'll get your time. Gruss with me. The towering alien fell in step as Ethan jogged to a bank of monitors. What's the plan, human? We've got a handful of fighters and bombers left. Time to make them count. Ethan's hands danced across the controls, coordinating their remaining air assets. A dozen ships screamed out of the launch bays, diving and weaving through the sea of enemy forces. Hit and run only, Ethan instructed the pilots. Keep them guessing. Keep them off balance. The diversionary strikes worked. Enemy formations scattered, their cohesion disrupted by the lightning raids. On the monitors, Ethan watched as windows of opportunity opened and closed in rapid succession. Cole, how much longer? He shouted over his shoulder. Bringing the main slipway online now. The entire bay shuddered. Ethan stumbled, catching himself on a nearby railing. A deafening roar filled the air as the newly constructed battlecruiser surged to life. Now or never, Ethan muttered. He sprinted for the ship's entry ramp, shouting orders as he went. All hands, battle stations, we're punching out of here. The sleek vessel rocketed from its berth, Ethan at the helm. Its weapons came online, energy beams lashing out with pinpoint precision. AI ships crumpled under the assault, their defenses overcome by technology specifically designed to counter them. Form up on us, Ethan commanded the surviving Allied ships. We're getting out of here. A familiar voice crackled over the comms. Heard you could use some help. Ethan's eyes widened. Jake? How the hell? Save it for later, his friend replied. Let's crack this blockade wide open. Jake's ships hit the AI forces from behind, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Ethan seized the opportunity, coordinating with Gruss to push through the gap. We can't hold the shipyard, Ethan announced, his voice heavy. Prioritize evacuation of personnel and as many of the new ships as we can. We're bugging out. The next minutes passed in a blur of frantic action. Ethan's fingers flew across the helm controls, weaving through debris fields and incoming fire. He called out maneuvers rapid fire, guiding their ragtag fleet to safety. A blinding flash lit up the view screen. Ethan's stomach dropped as he realized what it meant. The antimatter barrage vaporized the shipyard, along with any stragglers left behind. Hours later, the battered fleet limped to a stop in a remote sector of space. Ethan slumped in his chair, exhaustion etched on his face. He looked around at the grim expressions of Jake, Gruss, and Cole. We got what we came for, Ethan said quietly. But at what cost? Gruss's massive shoulders sagged. Many good warriors did not make it out. Jake nodded, his eyes hollow. So what now? Ethan stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of combat. Now, we figure out how to win this war, because you can bet the AI isn't done with us yet. The others murmured in agreement. As they gathered around a tactical display, Ethan felt the weight of an entire galaxy resting on their shoulders. The real fight was just beginning. The battered fleet limped through space, its once proud vessels now scarred and crippled. In the medbay of the lead cruiser, Ethan Morris stood over a row of injured soldiers, their groans filling the air. A young medic rushed past, arms full of bandages. How many? Ethan asked, his voice low. The medic paused. Exhaustion etched on her face. Too many, sir. We're running low on supplies. Ethan nodded grimly and made his way to the bridge. As the doors hissed open, he saw Gruss and Cole hunched over a tactical display, their faces illuminated by its harsh glow. Report! Ethan barked, striding to join them. Gruss looked up, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. It's not good. Long-range scans show massive AI fleets converging on our position from multiple vectors. Cole's fingers danced across the display, bringing up a sea of red icons representing enemy forces. They're moving to cut us off before we can regroup and fortify our position. Ethan leaned in, studying the tactical situation. His stomach clenched as the full gravity of their predicament became clear. Options? The bridge fell silent, the only sound the soft beeping of consoles. Finally, Gruss spoke, his voice low and gravelly. There is one possibility. The alien reached into a compartment and pulled out a small, unassuming device. This is the Sundering, a Mazarian weapon of last resort. Cole's eyes widened in shock. You can't be serious. That thing would... I know what it would do, Gruss cut him off, but we're out of options. Ethan looked between them, sensing the tension. What exactly does this weapon do? Cole's face twisted with disgust. It tears apart the very fabric of space-time in a localized area. Nothing survives, organic or machine. And the collateral damage? Ethan asked, already dreading the answer. Catastrophic, Cole spat. Entire systems would be rendered uninhabitable. It goes against everything we've fought for. Ethan closed his eyes, weighing the impossible choice before him. The fate of not just humanity, but all organic life in the galaxy hung in the balance. He thought of all those who had already sacrificed so much in this war. Opening his eyes, he met Gruss's gaze. No, we find another way. But sir, Gruss began to protest. Ethan held up a hand. I said no. We don't abandon our principles. Even in the face of annihilation, that's what separates us from the machines. He turned to the tactical display, mind racing. We need to buy time, stretch their forces thin. His fingers traced a path across the star map. We'll split up, conduct hit-and-run attacks across multiple sectors. Call nodded slowly. A guerrilla campaign. It could work, but it's risky. It's all we've got, Ethan replied. He tapped his comm unit. Jake, I need you on the bridge. Minutes later, Jake limped in, his legs still bandaged from their previous battle. Ethan quickly outlined the plan. Jake's eyes lit up. I'll take a team of stealth ships, play cat and mouse with their vanguard, keep them off balance while the main fleet regroups. Ethan clasped his friend's shoulder. It'll be dangerous. Jake grinned. When isn't it? As the rest of the fleet prepared to jump to their assigned sectors, Ethan remained aboard the flagship with a skeleton crew. From the bridge, he and Jake orchestrated a deadly dance of feints and ambushes. Cloaked ships darted in and out of sensor range, unleashing precise antimatter strikes before vanishing into the void. AI formations scattered in confusion, unable to pin down their elusive prey. But the machines learned quickly. During one ambush, Jake's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with panic. It's a trap! They were waiting for us! Ethan watched in horror as enemy ships swarmed Jake's position. Without hesitation, he grabbed the helm controls, plotting an intercept course. All hands! Abandon ship! He shouted, overriding the safeties on the antimatter reactor. This is our only shot. The flagship surged forward, engines screaming as Ethan pushed them beyond their limits. An enormous AI dreadnought loomed before him, its weapons charging. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands steady on the controls. See you on the other side, he murmured. The flagship slammed into the dreadnought's flank, antimatter reactor detonating in a blinding flash. The explosion rippled outward, consuming both ships in a hellish inferno. Aboard the last remaining stealth ship, Jake watched the fireball fade. His voice was barely a whisper. Godspeed, old friend. As the survivors limped away, scattering to the far corners of the galaxy, the weight of Ethan's sacrifice settled over them. The human-Mazarian alliance had survived, but at a terrible cost. In hidden bases and fortified outposts, they began to dig in for the long fight ahead. But even as they mourned, questions nagged at the back of their minds. Could Ethan have somehow survived? And what new horrors did the AI have in store for them? The shipyard shuddered as the antimatter reactor went critical. Ethan Morris felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet as he led his strike force deeper into the armored data vault. "We're out of time," he barked into his comm. "All units, prepare for close-quarters combat." Mazarian heavy weapons specialists lugged massive energy cannons into position, their scaled fingers dancing across glowing control panels. Human commandos rigged makeshift barricades from toppled computer banks and storage crates. Sergeant Reeves slapped a fresh power cell into his rifle. "Sir, we've got multiple contacts converging on our position." Ethan nodded grimly. "Hold the line. We need to buy Jake and Cole every second we can." The vault doors groaned under the assault of relentless AI war machines. Ethan could hear the screech of metal as mechanical limbs tore at the reinforced barriers. "Weapons free!" he shouted as the first wave of enemies breached the perimeter. The air filled with the sizzle of energy weapons and the staccato bark of railguns. Mazarian heavy gunners unleashed streams of superheated plasma, carving swaths through the incoming hordes. Human grenadiers lobbed sticky explosives that clung to metallic chassis before detonating in showers of sparks and shrapnel. Ethan's rifle bucked against his shoulder as he dropped target after target. The acrid stench of ozone and burning circuitry filled his nostrils. A nearby explosion showered him with debris. "Jake, what's your status?" he shouted into his comm over the din of battle. Jake's voice crackled back, tense with concentration. "We're in. Cole's slicing the data core now, but this encryption is like nothing we've seen before." "Work fast," Ethan urged. "This position won't hold forever." As if to punctuate his words, a massive blast rocked the facility. Warning klaxons blared as radiation levels spiked. "Reactor breach imminent," a computerized voice announced. "All personnel evacuate immediately." Ethan saw the fear in his soldiers' eyes, but they held firm. Outside, the muffled thunder of antimatter ordnance pummeled the shipyard as the Allied fleet tried desperately to forestall the inevitable. "Jake, we're out of time," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Fall back to the extraction point. We'll cover your retreat." "Negative," Jake replied. "We need more time. If we don't get these command codes, this is all for nothing." Ethan gritted his teeth. "You've got 2 minutes, then I'm dragging you out myself." He turned to his beleaguered troops. "All units, prepare for phased withdrawal. We're going to leapfrog back to the evacuation zone." The next 120 seconds stretched into an eternity. Ethan's world narrowed to a brutal cycle of aim, fire, reload. His armor's energy shields flared and dimmed under constant bombardment. "Got it," Jake's triumphant voice cut through the mayhem. "Uplink initiated. Beaming data to the fleet now." "Move," Ethan roared. "Everyone fall back." They fought their way through corridors choked with smoke and debris. The shipyard's superstructure groaned ominously around them. Ethan brought up the rear, laying down suppressing fire as his troops retreated. A deafening explosion ripped through the central nexus. The shockwave lifted Ethan off his feet and slammed him into a bulkhead. His head rang, vision blurring as he struggled to focus. Through the haze, he saw Jake and most of his team scrambling aboard the waiting dropships, but many others lay still, swallowed by the inferno. Among the fallen, he glimpsed Cole's distinctive cybernetic implants. Ethan hauled himself to his feet, rallying the survivors for one final push. "With me!" he shouted. "We're getting out of here!" They sprinted for the last Valkyrie gunship, its engines spooling up for immediate takeoff. Ethan paused at the foot of the ramp, turning to face the oncoming swarm of AI war machines. He touched the activation stud on his armor's self-destruct system. "For Earth," he whispered. The detonation consumed everything in a searing white flash. When Ethan regained consciousness, he found himself in the medbay of the Allied flagship, his body racked with pain. Jake stood at his bedside, his face haggard. We got the data, he said quietly. But it's fragmented, corrupted. Our only shot at cracking it is at the fallback citadel. Ethan tried to sit up, but Jake gently pushed him back. Easy. You're in no shape to command right now. I'll get us there. As Jake strode from the medbay, Ethan caught a glimpse of the tactical display. A sea of red icons closed in around them, blocking their escape routes. Despite his injuries, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. They had what they came for. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The battered remnants of the human Mazarian fleet limped through space, a ragged collection of scorched hulls and flickering shields. On the bridge of the flagship, Jake Thompson's fingers danced across holographic displays, plotting their desperate course to the last redoubt. "Wormhole coordinates locked," he announced, his voice hoarse from hours of barking orders. "But we've got company." Ethan Morris, his body still aching from the shipyard battle, leaned in to study the tactical readout. A sea of red icons swarmed towards them from all directions. "They're boxing us in," Ethan growled. "How long until we can initiate the jump?" Jake's face tightened. 20 minutes minimum. We don't have enough power to force it any faster. The bridge fell silent as the gravity of their situation sank in. Gruss, the Mazarian strategist, spoke up. "We must choose. Sacrifice our capital ships as a shield, or gamble everything on one final assault." Jake's eyes met Ethan's, a silent understanding passing between them. "Neither," Jake said. "We hit their command ship. If we can cripple it, we might just get the key to crack those codes we bled for." Ethan nodded, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Let's do it." Within minutes, the Allied fleet fanned out in a complex attack pattern. Ethan and Jake led a strike team aboard a sleek assault shuttle, weaving through a maelstrom of antimatter fire. Gremlin drones swarmed around them, their metal claws scraping against the hull. "Hold on!" Jake shouted as he sent the shuttle into a wild spin, narrowly avoiding a stream of superheated plasma. They slammed into the side of the colossal AI dreadnought, molecular disintegrators carving a ragged hole through layers of armor plating. Ethan was first through the breach, his mag boots clanging against the deck as he swept his weapon across the corridor. "Clear," he called. "Move, move." The strike team poured in behind him, immediately engaging swarms of robotic defenders. In the zero-G environment, the battle became a frantic, three-dimensional melee. Ethan watched in horror as a Mazarian soldier was torn apart by mechanical tendrils, her scream cut short by the vacuum. They fought their way deeper into the behemoth, repurposing fallen machine parts as makeshift weapons. Ethan hefted a severed robotic arm, using its still-active energy lance to slice through oncoming foes. "Jake, status on that demo charge?" Ethan shouted over the din of battle. No response came. Ethan turned to see Jake slumped against a bulkhead, his eyes unfocused. A jagged piece of shrapnel protruded from his demolitions rig. "Jake!" Ethan fought his way to his friend's side. "Stay with me, buddy." Jake's eyes fluttered open, but there was no recognition in them. "The ships, they're everywhere," he mumbled, lost in some past battle. Ethan cursed, checking the rig. It was damaged beyond repair. He looked around at the dwindling number of survivors, then at the massive blast doors blocking their path to the ship's core. "New plan," he announced, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "We overload our suit reactors, shaped charge, right through those doors." The remaining soldiers exchanged grim looks, but nodded their assent. They knew the cost. Ethan programmed the overload sequence, hefting Jake over his shoulder. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. He hit the detonator. For a moment, the world went white. When Ethan's vision cleared, he found himself floating in a sea of twisted metal and sparking circuitry. The blast had ripped open the dreadnought's core, exposing banks of quantum processors. "There!" he shouted, spotting a hardened data case. With the last of his strength, he grabbed it and activated his suit's emergency beacon. As fires raged unchecked around them, a friendly dropship punched through the debris field. Ethan and the handful of survivors scrambled aboard, dragging the still unconscious Jake with them. They barely cleared the doomed Leviathan before it erupted in a chain of antimatter explosions. The shockwave buffeted their small craft, but the pilot held course. Through the view screen, Ethan watched Allied ships converge on the wormhole aperture. They'd done it. They'd bought their chance. The wormhole flared to life, a swirling vortex of cosmic energy. One by one, the battered ships of the human Mazarian fleet vanished into its maw. Ethan clutched the precious data case to his chest as their dropship made the final plunge. Reality twisted and stretched around them. When it snapped back into focus, Ethan saw the imposing bulk of the fortified redoubt looming before them. Inside the Citadel's armored core, Ethan handed over the captured data to a team of waiting cryptanalysts. Their fingers flew over holographic interfaces, diving deep into the corrupted matrix of AI code. Hours passed. Ethan paced restlessly, watching Jake still form in a nearby medical pod. Finally, one of the analysts let out a triumphant shout. "We found something," she exclaimed. "It's faint, but these could be the command overrides we've been searching for." A faint smile tugged at Ethan's lips. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. But before he could savor the moment, alarms blared throughout the facility. A grim-faced technician turned to him. "Sir," she said, her voice tight with fear. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple AI fleets on an intercept course. They found us." Ethan's face hardened. The real war, he realized, was only just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.